I had just given birth when my husband left town for a work trip, leaving me alone with our newborn. On the third night, exhausted and barely standing, I heard banging on my door. It was my neighbor, screaming, "Your baby won't stop crying. Control that thing." I apologized through tears, but he cut me off, shouting, "Maybe you shouldn't be a mother if you can't handle it." The next morning, CPS showed up at my doorstep from an anonymous call claiming I was neglecting my child. I'm not the type to hold a grudge, usually. But what Wayne did, it almost broke me. And it deserved payback. I had just given birth 3 weeks earlier. My daughter, Sophia, was the sweetest little thing, but she had a set of lungs that could wake the dead. Nobody warned me about colic, about how helpless it would make me feel, or how much it would push me to my limit alone. Chris had no choice but to leave for work. He felt awful, I know he did. But when your husband is a contractor and lands a rare big job, you don't tell him to stay home unless you want to lose your house. So I smiled, kissed him goodbye, and said, "We'll be fine." I lied. By night 3, the house felt like a prison. Every creak in the floorboards made me jump. Every cry from Sophia made me feel like a failure. I was running on 2 hours of broken sleep. Then, that banging. That horrible, angry banging at 2 a.m. I thought maybe someone was hurt, maybe something terrible happened. Instead, it was just Wayne, my angry, bitter neighbor, red-faced and screaming at me over my crying newborn. When he shouted, "Maybe you shouldn't be a mother if you can't handle it," it broke something in me. Because deep down, that was already the voice in my head, whispering those exact same words every time I couldn't soothe Sophia. Wayne didn't just yell at a tired mother that night. He confirmed every fear I'd ever had about myself. He made sure I heard it out loud, sharp and cruel. I barely slept after that. I was scared he'd come back. Or worse. And then, like a nightmare coming true, CPS showed up at my door the next morning. 2 strangers in neat clothes, with serious faces, walking through my home like I was a criminal. Holding Sophia in my arms, I listened while they explained that anonymous tip. That I was neglecting my baby. That I might be under the influence. I almost vomited from the fear. They opened my fridge. They checked the nursery. They asked if anyone could corroborate that I was sober. I was too shocked to even process it, but when they finally left, I sat there shaking for an hour straight. I rocked Sophia back and forth until my arms went numb. Chris promised he'd be back in 2 days. But in the meantime, it was just me and my baby, sitting in that house, wondering if they were coming back to take her away. And there was Wayne, living his life right across the street, drinking beer on his porch, watering his dying grass, laughing with another neighbor like he hadn't just kicked me when I was down. That's when I made a decision. Wayne wasn't going to get away with this. He thought he could ruin my life with a few angry words and a phone call. He had no idea who he was dealing with. At first, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to do anything illegal. I still had CPS breathing down my neck. If anything got traced back to me, they might think I really was an unfit mother. So I got smart about it. First thing I did was start documenting everything. I bought a small camera off Amazon that looked like a phone charger. I plugged it into the living room wall facing my front door. Another one in the baby's room. I even set one facing the street, catching Wayne's house straight on. If he so much as stepped onto my porch again, I was going to have proof. While I waited for the cameras to arrive, I did some digging on Wayne. Turns out, he wasn't exactly the upstanding citizen he liked to pretend to be. Wayne had a couple of run-ins with the law from years back, DUI, disorderly conduct, even a disturbing the peace charge that had been dropped. Nothing that stuck hard, but enough that it painted a picture. And then I found the real gold mine. Wayne was renting his house. It wasn't even his. He rented it from a woman who lived 2 towns over. I found her information through the county records. Her name was Sharon. I filed that away in my head. That could come in handy. When the cameras finally arrived, I set them up carefully and waited. I didn't have to wait long. 2 nights later, around midnight, Sophia was having another rough night. I was rocking her in the living room when I saw movement outside. It was Wayne, standing across the street. Just watching, not doing anything. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at my house. My blood ran cold. I turned off all the lights, pulled the curtain back just a hair, and stared at him. He stood there for maybe 10 minutes, then stumbled back inside his house. The next morning, I pulled the footage. There he was, clear as day, standing on the sidewalk, just staring like a lunatic. It wasn't enough to get him arrested, but it was a start. I kept collecting more. Then something happened that pushed everything over the edge. About a week later, after Chris finally got home and we were settling back in, I got a letter. It was from my HOA. Someone, anonymously of course, had reported excessive noise from my house. They were considering fines. 3 complaints in 1 month, and they could even take legal action. Wayne. It had to be Wayne. He wasn't just trying to scare me. He was trying to get me kicked out. Chris wanted to confront him, but I stopped him. No, not yet. We were going to do this my way. I pulled out my phone and called Sharon, Wayne's landlord. I introduced myself and politely said I was one of Wayne's neighbors and that I had some concerns. At first, Sharon was defensive. She said Wayne had been renting from her for almost 6 years without any major problems. I stayed calm. I explained that I had a newborn. That Wayne had come to my house in the middle of the night yelling. That Child Protective Services had shown up at my door because of an anonymous call right after he threatened me. That he was standing outside my house at night, watching, and that the HOA was now involved. I didn't accuse him outright. I just laid it all out, slow and steady. Then I offered to send her the camera footage. No threats. Just information. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Sharon sighed. "Send it," she said. So I did. Every clip. Every note. Every letter from the HOA. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. And then, on the 3rd morning, there was a "For Rent" sign staked into Wayne's front lawn. He was getting evicted. Apparently, he had already been on thin ice with Sharon after a noise complaint last year. My new evidence was the final nail. Wayne was furious. I saw him stomping around his porch, cursing into his phone, kicking over a broken chair. For a second, I thought he might come over and do something stupid. I was ready for him. Chris was ready for him too. But Wayne never crossed the line. He just stewed in his misery. A few weeks later, a moving truck showed up. Wayne packed up his sad little life and drove off, middle finger in the air as he passed my house. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Because a few months later, I found out Wayne had moved in with his sister a few towns over. And suddenly, strange things started happening again. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid. It started small. Packages went missing off my porch. I'd find weird footprints by the side of my house, near the nursery window. Once, someone slashed one of the tires on my car. Chris thought it was just random bad luck. I wasn't so sure. I couldn't shake the feeling that Wayne wasn't done with me yet. Then one night, after putting Sophia to bed, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, there was nothing on the other end at first. Just breathing. Then a low, sneering voice said, "Maybe you still shouldn't be a mother." I hung up, heart pounding so hard it made my teeth hurt. I knew that voice. It was Wayne. He had my number. He knew where we lived. And he wasn't letting it go. I called the police that night. Filed a report. Gave them the phone number, but it was a burner. The officer who came out was polite, but didn't seem too hopeful. He told me to keep a log of everything. Build a case, he said. Easy for him to say. He didn't have a baby to protect. Chris wanted to move. He even started looking at apartments in the city. But I said no. I wasn't going to run from Wayne. Not this time. If he wanted a war, I was going to give him one. I started digging into Wayne even deeper. Through a local Facebook group, I found out he had a history of harassing women. Ex-girlfriends, neighbors, even a coworker who'd gotten a restraining order years ago but dropped it when he moved out of town. Wayne had a type. Vulnerable women. Women he thought he could scare. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I went to the courthouse and pulled public records on Wayne. Took hours, but it was worth it. I found something huge. Wayne had an old, unpaid DUI that had never been fully closed because he skipped out on court-ordered classes. It wasn't a warrant yet, but it was hanging over his head. I talked to a lawyer friend Chris knew from work. She told me exactly what to do. Gather proof of harassment, stack it up, and file for a restraining order. With his past, the judge would probably grant it. And if Wayne broke it? Automatic arrest. So I got to work. Every missing package? Reported and logged. Every late-night phone call? Logged and recorded. Every time I saw a shadow near my house, I called the police, filed a report, and added it to my file. It took weeks. Weeks of living with my stomach in knots, sleeping in shifts with Chris to keep an eye on Sophia. But eventually, I had a thick stack of papers in my hand. Enough to make a judge sit up and take notice. When I walked into court that day, I wasn't just a scared new mom anymore. I was ready for war. Wayne showed up too, looking smug, wearing a cheap suit and that same ugly sneer he wore the night he banged on my door. He tried to lie, of course. Tried to say I was crazy, overreacting, hysterical. The judge didn't buy it. The restraining order was granted on the spot. 1 year, no contact. No coming within 500 feet of me, Chris, or Sophia. If he even drove past my street, he was going to jail. Wayne was furious. As he walked past me out of the courtroom, he muttered under his breath, "This isn't over, bitch." For a while, things got better. Sophia got a little older, slept through the night more. Chris and I started to breathe again. We even celebrated her first birthday with a little party in the backyard. Neighbors came. It felt like maybe we were finally moving past it. But then, 2 months later, I woke up to find the side of my house spray-painted. In big, red letters, "Bad Mother." I called the cops immediately. The police took it seriously this time. Because of the restraining order, it was a criminal offense if Wayne was responsible. They dusted for fingerprints, took statements, started pulling security footage from nearby houses. And then, they got lucky. One of my neighbors 2 doors down had just installed a Ring camera. It caught a clear shot of Wayne, hoodie pulled up, walking away from my house in the middle of the night, spray can in hand. He wasn't smart enough to cover his face. The police picked him up that same day. Trespassing. Violation of a restraining order. Destruction of property. Harassment. Wayne didn't walk out of jail that time. He sat there. And he stayed there. His sister refused to bail him out. He didn't have enough money to post bond. And because he violated a protection order, the judge wasn't feeling generous. Last I heard, he took a plea deal that put him on probation, ordered counseling, and slapped him with another 2 years of a protection order. By the time he gets out of that mess, Sophia will be talking in full sentences. For a while after Wayne got locked up, life really started to feel normal again. Chris and I even talked about maybe having a second baby down the line. Sophia was finally sleeping through the night. I wasn't scared of every little sound outside anymore. I could walk to the mailbox without looking over my shoulder. But deep down, something still didn't feel finished. It was like a loose thread in the back of my mind. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And sure enough, it did. It started with little things again. Letters shoved into our mailbox with no stamp. Crude notes written in sloppy handwriting. "Everyone knows you're a bad mom. You don't deserve her. She'll hate you one day." At first, I thought maybe it was just leftover hate from Wayne. Maybe he got some buddy of his to send them. But something about the handwriting seemed off. Like it was trying too hard to look messy. Chris and I set up cameras around the mailbox, just in case. We didn't catch anyone at first. Until one afternoon, about a month after the spray painting, when I came home from the grocery store and saw someone darting away from the porch. I checked the camera footage immediately. And that's when my heart almost stopped. It wasn't Wayne. It was Marcia, my neighbor 2 houses down. The same woman who had come to Sophia's birthday party. The same woman who brought over a casserole when I first moved in. She was the one leaving the notes. I didn't understand it at first. It didn't make sense. Why would Marcia, this sweet, middle-aged woman with a friendly smile and a garden full of roses, be targeting me? I stewed on it for days. Finally, I decided to confront her. I walked over, camera running in my jacket pocket, and knocked on her door. Marcia answered with that same fake smile. I didn't waste time. I know it's you, I said. I have you on camera. Leaving those letters. If you don't explain yourself, I'm going to the police. For a second, she looked stunned. Then she laughed. Not a happy laugh, a bitter, mean little chuckle. You think you're better than everyone, she snapped. With your perfect little family and your perfect little baby. You parade her around like some trophy. I just stared at her, speechless. Marcia kept going, voice rising. You don't deserve any of it. You're nothing. Just some stupid little girl who got lucky. She slammed the door in my face. I stood there, shaking. It wasn't just Wayne. It was jealousy. It was people like Marcia, bitter, ugly-hearted people who saw something good and wanted to crush it. It wasn't about Sophia crying. It wasn't about noise. It wasn't even about being a bad mother. It was about how some people can't stand to see others happy. I walked home in a daze. Chris listened, furious, but we both agreed, no police. Marcia hadn't done anything that serious yet. But we made it clear through the HOA that if it happened again, we'd be pressing charges. We didn't hear from her again. She still glares at me every time I pass her house. But she keeps her distance now. For a long time after that, I thought the worst was finally over. I focused on Sophia, on healing, on rebuilding the little piece we had. But what I didn't know was that Wayne, he wasn't done yet. Because 2 years later, just when Sophia was old enough to start preschool, I found out Wayne had moved back. Not to my street. Not even to my neighborhood. But close enough that our paths were about to cross again, in a way I never could have seen coming. 2 years passed. I thought I was finally free from that nightmare. Sophia was 3 now. She was happy, healthy, smart. Chris and I had even started saving for a bigger house, somewhere quieter, maybe farther out in the country. I had almost forgotten what Wayne's voice sounded like. Then one day, after dropping Sophia off at her new preschool, I saw him. Wayne, standing across the street, leaning against a black pickup truck, grinning like he had all the time in the world. My stomach dropped. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was just someone who looked like him. Maybe it was my trauma playing tricks. But when I got back home and searched the public records again, sure enough, Wayne had moved into a trailer park less than 3 miles from my house. Legally, he wasn't violating the restraining order anymore. It had expired 6 months earlier. He could live as close as he wanted now. He could be anywhere. I realized right then, if I didn't finish this, if I didn't make sure Wayne couldn't get near my family ever again, it would never end. And honestly, I wasn't scared of him anymore. I was done being scared. It was time for real revenge. I started with the basics. I followed him, not in a crazy way, just casual drive-bys. I learned his routine, where he drank at night, what gas station he stopped at, how he liked to drive after he'd been drinking. I took notes. Dates, times, places. Every risky move he made. Wayne had never changed. He still thought he was untouchable. He wasn't careful. He drove drunk at least 3 nights a week. One night, I followed him out of the dive bar where he drank cheap whiskey and played darts. Watched him stumble to his truck. Watched him peel out of the parking lot, tires screeching. I didn't call the police right away. I waited. Watched him swerve over the yellow line 3 times on the way home. Then, with one hand shaking on my phone, I dialed 911. "Yes, I'm on Highway 14, I told the operator, voice steady. "There's a black pickup weaving all over the road. Looks drunk. License plate." I rattled off Wayne's plate number from memory. "Thank you, ma'am," the operator said. "Officers are en route." I pulled off onto a side street and waited. 5 minutes later, blue and red lights lit up the night sky. I watched from a distance as 2 cruisers boxed Wayne's truck in. Watched him try to argue with the officers, slurring his words, failing the field test miserably. They cuffed him right there on the side of the road. It didn't stop there. Wayne had been on probation for the last stunt with me, and a DUI violated it automatically. That meant jail time. Real jail time. Not just a few nights in county. Wayne ended up getting sentenced to 18 months behind bars. 18 months without freedom. 18 months to think about what he'd done. 18 months where he couldn't hurt anyone else. And I didn't feel bad. Not one damn bit. But here's where I'll admit something. I made a mistake too. See, I got a little too cocky. After Wayne went away, I posted about it in our local Facebook group. Just a simple post. Sometimes, karma really does catch up. I didn't name him. I didn't have to. Everybody knew. Marcia, bitter old Marcia, saw the post. She screenshotted it. She sent it to Wayne's sister. Wayne's sister sent it to Wayne's lawyer. Suddenly, I got a letter in the mail. Wayne was trying to sue me for emotional distress, claiming I publicly harassed him while he was trying to rebuild his life. It was laughable. It was pathetic.